when we got this space, we wanted to make it easy for other people. So it's a licensed commissary. Other people who want to get their food businesses off the ground can rent it. And we also offer a scholarship to, low-income women and people of color and immigrants. So, yeah, it's a cool space.
Welcome to HenHouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of HenHouse Brewing Company. Each episode, we'll take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up? What up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge, your host for the HenHouse Unruffled podcast, and today I'm joined by my Unruffled regulars, Bob and Sayre, as well as Gwen Gunheim of Kitchen Queens and also Miracle Plum, a recent collaborator for our beer Coincidence and Miracles, which is an absolutely incredible barrel-aged sour beer made with Santa Rosa Plums. This beer rests firmly in our Oak Cult series, and it is poetry in a glass. Kitchen Queens is a commissary kitchen that thrives on collaboration. The inevitable merging of our two entities was by no means a coincidence, but certainly resulted in a miracle. Without further ado, let's get it going. We are speaking with Gwen Gunheim of the Kitchen Queens, recent collaborator on our incredible barrel-aged beer that just came out around Mother's Day called Coincidence and Miracles, part of the Oak Cult series. This beer actually has plums from my backyard in it, so I'm super stoked on this. And Gwen, we are super grateful to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited. I do have to caveat that although I oversee the Kitchen Queens, I'm really an appreciator, and I wouldn't actually call myself a queen, but they are amazing, and I'm glad that I get to talk with you all in their stead.
So break that down for us. Give us the Kitchen Queens Miracle Plum oeuvre.
Yeah, so Miracle Plum is a shop in town, our shop, and then the kitchen is what we opened, I guess, almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, which is a few blocks away, and the kitchen is a registered commissary, so in addition to us using it for Miracle Plum, there are other amazing chefs and food entrepreneurs that also use the kitchen. And our primary team there is Bonnie and Joni, and Sally sort of manages the whole shebang over there.
All right. And how did the conversation about doing a beer with us start? I feel like I heard about this for the first time years ago.
Josh might be better suited to answer that because I don't exactly remember, except for thinking that it would be a really cool idea. Of course, we are very focused on local food and agriculture, so it seemed like a perfect fit for everything that HenHouse is doing. And then when it was plum season, it was sort of like, actually, this is a really great idea.
Yeah. And the plums that we used in the beer are Santa Rosa plums, but also known as Miracle Plums. Is that correct?
I think for anybody who has had a Santa Rosa plum, that is correct. But the Miracle Plum, also a Luther Burbank invention, was a cross between a French prune and a wild plum. And the thing that made it a miracle is it didn't have a pit. So it was a seedless plum. They've mostly been lost to history, but in naming the shop Miracle Plum, that was sort of our quiet nod to Santa Rosa and Santa Rosa horticulture. But the Santa Rosa plums, they're probably the best plum there is.
100%. They do taste like a miracle. Like you nailed it right there.
Yeah. They do. It was so fun. I helped process a lot of the plums for the beer, and I got to shove the plums into the barrels that were already fermenting. It was like a multi-tiered situation, I guess, and I wish there was smell-o-vision. It was so incredible to smell what was happening in there.
Well, there is. It just comes in a bottle a year and a half later.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
We often wish that more senses could be detected with the podcast. Like, oh, yes, you can't see this or taste this or smell this, but let us describe it to you.
That's, I mean, what else is the task of poetry but articulating the senses?
Ooh,
Full
on brand,
circle.
full
Nailed it.
Yep.
Or if you're not so good at poetry, making great beer and then letting people try it.
Indeed.
There you go.
But there's a poetry connection to this project.
Yeah.
I don't know how these two visions got smushed together, but former Chicken Gang member, now Northwesterner, Katie Soya, submitted a beer suggestion via a form we have for our employees called This Is Just to Say, which I think I can say unequivocally is the most famous poem about plums. William Carlos
Checks
Williams
out.
poem.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was suggesting this sour beer with plums. And then I think Josh jumped on that and was like, but we want to do this thing with the gals from Miracle Plum and the Kitchen Queens and plums. Let's do this. And those two things kind of came together and became this. So we have the poetry piece, the local agricultural piece, the William Carlos Williams piece, the Will Luther Burbank piece, the Miracle Plum piece. There's a lot of narratives being woven together in this bottle.
Like the staves of a barrel coming together to make one thing.
Exactly. Well, our favorite word is collaboration. So when you can take it one step further and the name has a meaning and the fruit has a meaning and all of that, then sure, we're all for it.
Yeah, it's the symbolism, that's important actually with the marketing on the occult series. So it was really suited well for what we've been doing with that series. And I gotta say, it may be my favorite one that we've ever made in that series. Like, I am just smitten with this beer. Super proud and excited to give it to my neighbors, my mom. I've stashed a few away for myself at this point. This beer is insanely good.
Gwen, have you guys gotten to taste it yet?
No, I had hoped to get over to HenHouse this weekend and had the worst allergy attack. So I'm hoping that this week I'm really excited.
It really turned out, and I think most wonderfully is just what a showcase it is for the plums. Like, it is, sometimes you do a fruit beer and the fruit character can either get lost or really, really transformed by the fermentation process or the other ingredients. This is just like our dark sour ale base with just an insane amount of very, very true Santa Rosa Plum character layered on top. It is really, really wonderful and caramely and plummy and spicy.
It is so good. I think this might be the best fruited barrel-aged beer we've ever produced. I'm in love with it. I keep calling it a drinking plum because it is like a plum, but I don't have to chew. It's just marvelous.
Yeah.
Yay, that's so exciting.
It's like capturing the magic of late harvest when you have plums that are starting to ferment on your ground a little bit.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And
nice.
so what little I know of Miracle Plum, you guys are very plugged into the natural wine thing, which then is kind of draws that connection to terroir and locality. Why was that so important to you guys?
It's how I like to drink. I tend to like something that tastes a little bit fresher, tends to be a little lower in alcohol, and also there wasn't any place to get what I like to drink in Sonoma County. So, and that's not totally true. There are some restaurants with great lists, but we just wanted to really focus on that. There's also so many people making really lovely natural wine locally, and they don't really get the same sort of appreciation because they don't own their own land or they don't have their own winery. So being able to showcase, hey, there are local people making this stuff. It's not just import, though, of course, we do have fun imports, too. So that was our thought behind it. And, of course, we have beer also and ciders and all the delicious fermented things.
Who are some of your favorite locals?
Local winemakers, there's so many. We do this Meet the Winemaker series almost every Thursday with different winemakers who come through and show off what they're doing. So there isn't one this week, but next week is going to be Le Lune. They make wine under Le Lune and also Populous, and it's really fun. They're really thoughtful about their farming. They do a lot of their own farming. The folks that we had last time was Unturned Stone. They are great. They are really interested in doing fun stuff with their ferments and not afraid of experimentation. I love supporting female winemakers, Raft Wines. She's also Liberty Duck. So
Jen Reichart. We had Jen on the on a live during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is wonderful, and her wines are so pretty. They're wines that I love to have on the shelf because a lot of different types of people will enjoy them. You know, a tourist who's used to very conventional stuff, who's visiting wine country and wants something that's, you know, wine country, they're going to love Jen's wines. And then somebody who really wants natural wine is also going to love her wine. So, yeah.
The last time you jumped, not the last time, but a time I remember you jumping into my Instagram feed was one of my favorite, fairly local woman winemakers, Martha Stoneman. Shouted you guys out for receiving some major accolade as one of the better wine shops in the country recently.
Yeah. Martha's great. We did a fun event with her and Julia Sherman, or a cookbook over the winter. And again, they were collaborating on a wine. We did the event here. It was just super fun.
Very cool. And when did Miracle Plum open?
Miracle Plum opened August 2018, coming up on 4 years.
What has that 4 years entailed that you might have expected, and what has that 4 years entailed that surprised you?
That is a very funny question because, let's see, in 2017, we thought we would open. That was the fires. 2018 was floods, I believe. 19 was fires, and then COVID. So pretty much this entire run has been very unexpected. But we also didn't have a ton of expectations. It's both mine and Sally's first public-facing business. So we went in just seeing how it would go. Our point was to share delicious food and wine with people, get people excited about cooking and just, you know, being curious about what's happening locally. And I think we've achieved that. It's something that we're still really excited about and working towards. And then, everything else has been totally unexpected.
Yeah, my fiance absolutely loves Miracle Plum. She comes there every once in a while. We haven't been getting out as much since the whole pandemic, but I remember coming there one time for this dumpling pop-up that we absolutely loved, and it was incredible.
Oh, yeah. That was right when we first opened, or maybe even before we opened.
I think it might have been a pre-opening thing. That was the that was the time I went, but she's been a bunch of other times, and it was actually just her birthday, and I'm reminded of something that she often says at birthdays, which is like, what is your rose, what is your thorn, and what is your bud, you know? So I'm wondering, what is your rose with Miracle Plum, what is your thorn, and what is your bud?
Okay, I don't know if I'm totally understanding the question, but if I answer this in a crazy way, you can just redirect me. I think our rose would certainly be like our community aspect and engagement. Definitely COVID threw a wrench in a lot of the ways that we were practicing that, but we still were able to find ways around it. I mean, it's beyond like trying to support local farmers, producers. We used to do a ton of workshops and like to do like community offerings. So we in the past had this cookbook club that, you know, you didn't have to pay to be a part of it. And really sort of, Sally and I are both from Santa Rosa, so really trying to connect with our community and beyond just locally, the community of people who get like really excited about amazing beer and amazing food and, you know, are talking about what they are going to have for dinner when they're eating breakfast. That's our community, wherever you are in the world.
Yeah.
So that's definitely like the rose. The thorn, this is maybe a little bit more personal, but it's just feeling like we've been spinning plates for 3 years and not exactly like following the path we thought we would or that we wanted to. Having to let go of some things that we really loved and embrace things that we didn't know would work. But it's just, you know, the overall exhaustion and like uncertainty and craziness, which comes with, you know, being a small business anyway, but this feels particularly intense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's over. So there's that. And then bud, I guess, would be, you know, things that are coming back. We just had our first workshop last week with Sarah Owens, who, if you all don't know her, she is an amazing fermenter. She's mostly known for sourdough bread, but does all kinds of things. She would be an amazing person to collaborate with. But she taught a sourdough bread class that was so fun, and it was just like really magical to see so many people gathering again. And this all happened at the kitchen. And this is the first time we've ever done any event at the kitchen, so that was really cool. Also, we've pulled back on using the kitchen as much as we were, so it's allowed for more space for other people. So now on the weekends, there's a little takeout window at the kitchen. On the weekends, you can get Sonoma Mountain breads in the morning. He makes amazing bread. His pastries are incredible. Like, he uses buckwheat in his laminates. Like, the croissants are incredible. And then he always has some other food options, too. And then the evening is Song-san, who is making Thai food, mostly Thai. Sometimes they'll do, like, some Chinese. Sometimes they'll do some Korean. But it's mostly Thai, and it's the best Thai food I've ever had. It's so good. So pretty much every weekend you can catch them at the window. In the morning for Sonoma Mountain Breads, in the evening for Song-san. And being able to sort of like see new businesses incubate, like the new relationship energy is what gets me super excited. So that all happening over at the kitchen is really cool.
Awesome. And you totally nailed it, by the way. I definitely could have explained that a lot better.
I mean,
but you nailed it.
We're talking about a horticulturist, like, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I'm glad to hear that those workshops are coming back and that you are championing other local collaborators at that spot. That just sounds like the place I want to be. So I'm going to come down there and buy some stuff because that sounds incredible, especially at Sonoma Mountain Bread stuff.
Yeah,
and I love the fact that I imagine the creation of the commissary kitchen was to fulfill a need for your primary business, Miracle Plum. And then it's become... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's exactly right. Like, when we always thought we would build out a kitchen in the shop at some point, but the retail needs its space in that we didn't want to give up any wine space. So when we had this opportunity for this kitchen that's off-site, it's just a few blocks away, but it's off-site, and it was in the early days of the pandemic that it became available. We took a leap and went for it and very intentionally got it licensed as a commissary because, I mean, it was so hard for us to find kitchen space when we were trying to, I mean, we've always made our house-made jams and granolas and, you know, had always wanted to do our lunch program too, and it was super hard. So when we got the space, we wanted to make it easy for other people. So it's a licensed commissary. Other people who want to get their food businesses off the ground can rent it. And we also offer scholarships to, you know, low-income women and people of color and immigrants. So, yeah, it's a cool space.
Awesome. Yeah, commissary kitchens were already in high demand just for how expensive the traditional brick-and-mortar restaurant business has become, and then the pandemic sent that to a crazy thing. My girlfriend's a caterer, and I know... You know, I think she was in about 3 different commissaries through the course of the entire pandemic, and the prices just kept going up, and then the demand for them went crazy. But it's very cool. We keep running into on this podcast small businesses that find greater success in enabling other small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And that is very cool.
Lifting each other up, you know. Ingenuity in the face of adversity. That's what's up.
Yeah, we noticed that for ourselves, that every time we try to work with other people, things just happen so much like easier, or they're more fun, or it works better. Whereas if we just try to like put our head down and only think about ourselves, it doesn't get us very far.
Yeah,
that's been what we've, something that we've hoped for from the beginning. But sometimes, especially like during a pandemic when things are high stress, it's hard to remember to like, okay, maybe I should take a beat, reach out, see, you know, who's doing what out there and where I might be able to fit into that.
Absolutely. I was just going to say the flip side of that, you know, not having a good time with somebody is also a positive learning experience because you're like, well, I know I won't want to work with them again.
Yep. Or usually it's me. I'm like, okay, I need to use my friendly voice when I'm talking about this thing.
Well, we couldn't be more grateful for you guys to kind of give us the push to use this extraordinary fruit to celebrate our neighborhood here. And we love the celebrating of this region that you guys do all the time. It's inspiring, and we hope that you'll keep it up. And we can't wait for you to get your hands on this beer because we're incredibly proud of it.
Yeah, you're going to like this.
I'm very excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for letting me cut up hundreds of plums in your break room.
You know that's something we might allow you to do kind of whenever you want. That's not exactly
True.
a high demand. The fruit processing. There's not a line.
Gig.
Yeah, not a line of production employees that are stoked on that. So anytime.
Well, keep me in mind. It's very therapeutic for me. Zone out.
Awesome.
Well, much appreciated all the hard work that you did in creating this beer because it really paid off. It is absolutely beautiful. And like Sayre said, can't wait for you to try some.
Yeah, and if you want us to come and pretend we're winemakers and pour it for wine people, we can do that.
Yeah, that would be very fun. Super
Sign
fun.
me up.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Cool. Yeah,
Cool.
I can rock the no sock look,
Yeah.
I can look like I make natural wine.
Yeah.
I got some shoes for that.
Yeah.
Some long sleeves.
Cool. Come as you are. We take all kinds.
That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thank
Thanks,
you
guys.
so much.
Thank you, Gwen.
Hope you have a great rest of your evening. And,
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.
I just love this beer. I can't stop smelling it. Gwen was lovely. And this, just like y'all said, like constantly bumping into other small local businesses that are making part of their business, collaborating with other small local businesses, is really making my day right now. Like, things are heavy, but everybody just getting together and doing it. And this beer is so good. We were talking about, like, it has really mellow acidity. And I would appreciate a little bit more acidity in this beer. That said, its absence makes it so much more drinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To someone who finds sour beer too tart, like, check this one out. Like, I really do think this has the perfect level of fruit-like acidity. It's like, it's right there. And I've got a friend who really, really loves sour beer, and she's not going to like this one. It is not nearly tart enough for her, but it is a
She'll love the smell of it.
She'll love the smell of it. It's
Yeah.
a liquefied plum. It is so great. I really do think this is the best fruited sour beer we've ever made.
I don't think this is close. But I do also think, and I've said it on this podcast before, craft beer consistently tells people to focus on the wrong aspect of the beer.
Yeah.
Like, American sour brewing comes about. It is a massive resurrection of, like, the hardest way to produce beer. Unless you're reading Garrett Oliver or Michael Jackson, you probably had never encountered, even if you described yourself as pretty into beer.
Right.
And instead of talking about mature beer, barrel-aged beer, and, who knows what would have been the appropriate way to refer to it, we called it sour beer.
Right.
Which did a number of things. One, it opened the door for brand confusion with shortcut sours like Goza and Berliner Weiss.
Right.
Because those are sour, right? And it created a situation where you can make a beer this beautiful and somebody may come to it and be like, this isn't sour.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it is where we are now, and it's the marketing challenge, right? Like, production did their job on this beer.
Right.
Like, this beer is unbelievably delicious and could not showcase this beautiful, rare-ish fruit any better than it does. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to be like, okay, we live in this world where it's like, how do you describe a beer that employs wild yeasts, spent a ton of time in barrel, ton of time in steel on fruit with all the natural microbacteria living on that fruit, and didn't get that sour.
Right.
Right? And, like, how do you create the correct expectation in the drinker so that they're just coming to it being like, fuck, that's delicious. Not, it's not sour. It's the corollary is fucking hazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, instead of being like super soft, fruity, not bitter, wonderfully aromatic IPA, we're like hazy.
Right.
Yes, the turbidity is the most important part.
Right. And so people are like, we'll put out something like Denver Airport, which offers all the tropicality that you want, but it doesn't look hazy.
No.
And so
Right.
it's like, this isn't hazy.
Yeah, it's bright
And-
right now.
yeah,
Also,
and-
my favorite batch, hands
Yeah.
down, like incredible.
Because, frankly, the way the beer looks isn't the most important thing about enjoying that beer. But once you tell someone it is, then it becomes a real part of that enjoyment because they have a certain expectation that you need to meet.
Right.
So it really,
It's a
I
visual
hope,
expectation there, you know?
I think the only solution is education, right? But there's also only so much educational heavy lifting for-profit companies can sign up for without going out of business.
Sure.
Like, meeting customer expectations is how you stay in business.
Right.
Like, shaping them and improving them is an incredibly laudable thing to do. It's leaving the industry better than you found it, but it is not necessarily profitable.
I mean,
Totally.
as long as I can expect that it's delicious, I'm happy to expect the unexpected and go on a journey like with the beer. And that to me is like why I love beer so much, because it is like it's a little adventure every time you open up, especially one of these beers.
Yeah.
And I mean, as the name would say, like coincidence and miracles, like you gotta not expect what's coming out of this. Like you're gonna smell it and it's gonna taste a little bit different, and maybe it's not gonna be as sour as you had expected, but also maybe it's all right to have a little mellow mid palate every once in a while.
Right. Well, we've talked about this, come up a number of times on the podcast, Fridge. I think you like fence straddling beer more than Bob and I do.
Oh, absolutely. I like everything though. Is the problem?
I like extreme beers, and this beer is extremely plum-like.
Exactly.
And like with that drinkability, so at 4.9%, I can just keep knocking these back.
Right.
And that's great.
So this is like Lindemans with the training wheels taken off.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And if that's people's brain lock for sour beer, but so many people don't experience Lindemans Framboise as sour because it is so back-sweetened and so fruity that they just get lost in the fruit.
Yeah.
And they don't even understand that as having a connection to lambic production, right?
Right.
You know, this is tough because this is a product that isn't really going to leave the tasting rooms, right? Like out in the world, like in Gen Pop, I think some people just put this in their mouths and like, oh, it's the plum beer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fucking unbelievably delicious, a little bit wine-like plum beer.
Yeah.
In the world of like, you know, I love what Sante does, I love what Allagash does, I love what Cantillon does. You're going to come to this and be like,
Not enough.
maybe. That's our job, is to figure out how to be like, you know, get in touch with that person that tasted Lindemans Framboise or Lindemans Creek for the first time and was blown away, because if you say you weren't, you're fucking lying. Like everybody that encountered a Lindemans beer the first time before you learned you were supposed to think it was kind of not cool.
Right.
It was
Love
like,
that
wow,
shit.
this is great.
And then just put this in your mouth. So I think just because it's so fucking good, it's not going to be a problem. But I
think that trumps everything, honestly. Like overall, if it's incredibly delicious, like that's going to curb the expectation in people's minds enough to be like, actually, I really appreciate this beer for this. You know, like even Bob over here is like, I like extreme beers, and yes, it's extreme in one way.
Yeah.
did you hear
And you
how
can appreciate it.
Did you hear how you sound to Fridge?
Yeah. I mean, that's how much. That's how everyone from the 90s sounds using the word extreme. That's how everybody sounds.
I was definitely having a little Harold and Kumar go to White Castle moment with that. Apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, this is just like the perfect recreation of a plum. And I would say leave the Tums and take the plums.
Bars.
You don't need them. And when, especially at, this old decrepit age I'm reaching, when it comes time to bottle share with my friends, the Tums are usually right there on the table, especially if we're getting into a bunch of sour stuff. Someone will bring out the Tums and they kind of shake it. It's this sad old man ritual that reminds me of being with these same people I drink with when the beer bong would come out. It's that same kind of thing, but it's like our bodies don't work anymore. Here's what we're doing.
Now it's just beer and the bong bong, right?
Well, always. But it's just the plumminess in this is so good. You're not going to get like that acid refluxy thing. There's no burn to it, and I think that's true over several pours. It's really good.
Unless there's something on those plums that's going to take hold at some point, I don't think the suburban bread is going to give you a bunch of acidity over bottle life.
I'll be really interested
might dry
to
out
see
a
what
little
this
bit.
tastes like in here, though.
It might dry out a little bit, which will probably increase the perception of the acidity.
I was just going to say it's going to be a perception thing and less of a like more acidity a coming. It's going to be perceived that way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be around long. I'm going to have to
it's
collect
gonna fly.
and not drink, resist the ability to drink these. We went to this fancy ass dinner last night, and I was like, this chef deserves bottles. So I went to my truck and gave away one of my bottles. I was like, God damn it, that was stupid.
Why did I do that?
Shout out to Comfort Collective. I had a Michelin quality meal last night, and
That's what's up.
robbed me of a bottle of Coincidence and Miracles in my elation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great experience.
Yeah. Should we talk about the poets?
Ooh, yeah.
That's also where this is on brand. Not that I think there's anyone who's going to know the nostalgia of this beer that well, but the fact this isn't a like blow your face off beer is in line with both of the writers that we're referencing here.
Yeah.
William Carlos Williams was like this. I'm not qualified to talk about poetry in a public forum, but like a bit of a like formalist, minimalist kind of writer. Yeah. And so this is just to say, it's this very lovely poem that some people, think is very romantic, but it's literally a note to, you assume, his romantic partner apologizing for eating the plums that they had left in the fridge.
They were too delicious.
Yeah. And like, there's a certain romance in the everyday nature of that, right?
I keep thinking of the note you leave on the fridge when you drink your significant other or roommate's last bottle
beer,
of Coincidence and Miracles.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's going to need to be a far more apologetic note.
Right?
Yeah.
These bottles do not grow on trees.
No. And like, definitely don't end that shit with like, so delicious. William Carlos, please. Like,
that would be like that'd be a major F you.
With me and my
Be like,
roommate's
by
beer
the
fridge,
way,
it'd be like,
so fucking delicious.
you super missed out, dog. Thanks.
That's kind of what the poem says.
That is exactly what the poem says.
But it's like sweet in a way there, and it's kind of just like jerky.
It's like I see
otherwise.
you, and I know that you are saving this unbelievable experience for yourself, but I know you love me, and you'll be happy that I had that unbelievable experience.
Right.
Which
100%.
is a lot of trust in your partner. And then, obviously, we couldn't use this as just to say, because, spoiler alert, it's the most famous poem ever about plums. Lots of people made plum beers and called it This Is Just to Say before.
Right.
So I went scrolling my mental Rolodex for a literary reference, and I was kind of locked in on that, like, mundane thing as an illustration of love. And there's a Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie wrote Under a Half Yellow Sun. Something happens in the plot, and I think it's like, this was love. A series of coincidences that gathered together and over time gained meaning and became miracles or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's where the name of this beer came from.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I like the low ABV on this, especially because it is going to be accessible, right? And there's a centric nature to this beer. When you hit the middle, right, when you're at the top of the bell curve, you're a crowd pleaser. This is a populous, potent, piquant party on the palate.
Yeah, great alliteration, dude.
Yeah. But definitely got me thinking a lot about, probably because I was down in Fairfax taking, pairing photos the other day and sitting down with yourselves, Annalisa and Colin recently to do sensory on this beer. Made me sort of imagine the flavor wheel and the graph that you create with that. And there are certainly spikes in the plum direction, right, in the stone fruit direction. But otherwise, for me, it's kind of like a round or, a less spiky graph, if you will. Again, this is not a visual medium here on the podcast, if you know what I'm talking about. But to be able to lay that over something that's complementary in the food world or something that's converse, that's basically how you do pairing as far as I know. And it got me thinking about that kind of stuff. And, going through the Cicerone trainings with you, thinking about that aspect of being a beer person.
Right.
It's something that not everyone knows how to do. People who are food minded like yourself, Sayre, it just comes naturally, it seems, to people like yourself. But it is something that's really hard for a lot of us. And I like beers that are hitting that middle post because it does make things a little bit easier and a little bit more accessible, approachable to teach you something to then maybe get a little bit more complicated with it.
I like thinking of this beer as something that could be someone's aha beer. And we make a lot of beers that could be someone's aha beer. Oh, I've only had really tart barrel-aged saisons. Oh, this is a fun saison. I could drink this whenever I wanted. This is cool. Or, oh, wow, IPAs don't have to be super bitter. And they've changed since I had my last one in 1997. This is really cool. But if you're I don't like beer person, this is a beer, and it tastes like beer. But the way this beer tastes is like the plums that we used to make it. And the experience I'm personally having when I drink it, I'm drinking this beer out of a big, beautiful tulip glass, which is how we serve this beer here and how I enjoy them. As I bring it up to my nose, it actually smells like a plum traveling closer to my face. And I get that plum skin aroma. And then as I sip it, it is like biting into it. I'm freaking out. I'm having such a great time with this. I just cannot say enough great things. And that like caramely sweetness that's in there, which is like a slightly overripe plum. I almost said over fermented plum, but like a slightly overripe plum that is on its way to ferment. It's just so good and so exactly like that.
Yeah. I mean, the success of that poem is putting you in the experience of biting into that plum, and the success of this beer is the same. I do wonder if it had gotten a little more flamboyant with the fermentation character, whether some of that just crazy distinct plumminess gets lost.
Yeah, I think that could have happened. I think if we, maybe it like packaged it differently, we could have like volatilized away some of these plummy characters, but we didn't. Like everything has just turned out so good, and like this is such a more fascinating, like addicting experience than a big gloppy fruited sour. And I'm like, I'm pro glop. I like it when a beer goes gloop gloop thump into my glass. That's fun. That's super fun. But even those beers, which without having a lab, maybe upwards of 75% pure fruit puree, they're still not as fruity to me as this experience I'm having right now. And I'm just absolutely enraptured with this beer.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're not going to get this with pasteurized fruit puree, regardless of the quality.
Right.
You're also not going to turn fruit of this quality into pasteurized fruit.
That's
puree.
factor too.
Like these are
Challenge accepted. The HenHouse 450 collab. Like, let's go.
The cans are literally $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting when everyone around the chicken coop, so to speak, is getting excited.
Is that what you're feeling about this beer?
I am, yeah. I think people are responding in a very positive way internally, and that's only going to spiral outwards externally, I think.
Cool. Well, Gwen just sent me a text and said their beer just arrived, so
Woo!
We'll know soon.
That is awesome.
I have a feeling they're going to like it.
And now, Sensory First.
Welcome to Sensory First. We just spent a bunch of time talking about the inspiration and flavors in that beer. Now learn a little bit about how those flavors are created. I am Bob from the marketing department here with the incredible
Zach Kelly, brewmaster.
And we are drinking something so special. I am so excited about. This is Coincidence and Miracles. This is a brand new plum sour from our fabulous barrel program at the Palace of Barrels, orchestrated by the fabulous Daniel Paddock and in collaboration with the fabulous folks at Miracle Plum in Santa Rosa. We done put the plum in the glass. What is this beer? Did we pack a bunch of plums in like a, tank and then fill it with water, and then this is what you get after?
Yeah, I think so. This is the beer what the plums went in.
Yeah.
So it's a dark sour base, which we've made. Barrel-aged plums, even whole form, which is carbonic maceration, where it's like a wine technique, but you don't do the crush, basically. Which has been coming back with a lot of cool beer styles where, we're adding whole wine grapes or whole plums or something like that, and into a tank, and allowing the beer to age on it and just have it kind of just do its thing, and some of that wild bacteria from the outside contributes its own flavors to basically a finished product, and does its own fermentation on the fruit juice itself. So we added these plums to a secondary tank. We added the dark sour base onto that, and we aged it, put it into bottles.
This thing is magic. I'm going to call this a drinking plum. If you want a plum but don't feel like chewing, just get a glass of this. It'll totally take care of you. Something we were talking about yesterday when we were first experiencing this beer is that the pectin from the plums is really contributing a lot to this mouthfeel. This beer has such a great creamy mouthfeel, and that is something I really love in beer personally. And in my experience, it's kind of tough to come by from a barrel-aged sour beer. They usually end up a bit on the thinner side, but man, not this one. This is full-bodied. This is creamy, and it's just plumbed out to the fullest.
Yeah, this beer, even though it finished out at an extremely low gravity, essentially no residual sugars, it still has a little bit of a sour sweetness to it. We used flaked oats in the original base beer, so there's a little bit of leftover creaminess there.
Yeah, I'll take those glue cans.
I'll take your glukins. So something else, old tradition. I would say this beer, Sayre had said it yesterday, very much reminiscent of a like a Lindemans.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of sour beer.
Yeah, and that is a great perspective.
Yeah.
The fabulous folks at Lindemans in Belgium make a bunch of really nice but pretty sweet lambic beer.
Yeah.
And they send that stuff over here. You can find it like all over the place. But because of like the back sweetening they do, Lindemans stuff has like largely been ignored, dare I say shunned by the American craft brewing community.
It's a lot different than the Lindemans I had from a buddy that went to Belgium and just bought a bunch of cases. It was definitely less sweet. Still a lot of those big fruit flavors, but like less back sweetener, still like lower ABV.
Right.
And this tastes a lot more reminiscent of like a more traditional like fruited Belgian beer.
Yeah.
Aged hops, some that we used on there, which is one of those weird old techniques for creeks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And enhances our beta acids because the alpha acids have fallen out. So the beta acids lead to less oxidation. So you end up getting a little bit more like sweet sherry character and stuff like that.
Cool. That was a thing I didn't know about aged hops because they are a big part of Belgian lambic production, old school sour beer production. I remember seeing like John Van Roy actually like talk about buying a ton of hops. This is John Van Roy from the fabulous Cantillon Brewery in Belgium, talking about buying a bunch of old hops from Russian River Brewing right here in Sonoma County because they had like extra hops they were sitting on and they were dope at one point and are no longer dope. But much like vintage clothes, it all kind of comes back around eventually. And stale hops eventually turn into really great aged hops that you can use for making these beers.
Yeah, it's to go into that technical side for a little bit. The alpha acids are something that, turn into isoalpha acids and they give us a bitterness. And those are things that break down quicker.
Right.
Beta acids are actually a little bit more preservative and those break down over a much longer period of time. So when you age the hops, even though you get these like less desirable, like cheesy, creamy sort of flavors that you definitely wouldn't want in like an IPA or something like that, you do end up with some of these more preservative characters. And so barrel aging on something that has been brewed with more of those beta acids ends up having a little bit more preservatives, a little bit more staying power, a little bit more defense against oxidation than you would have with something with a really high alpha acid. And you do end up getting sort of flavors that develop a little bit better, like I said before, these sherry or older wine, sort of port wine sort of notes to them.
Yeah,
which I'm getting a little bit of here.
I get a little port character, which I think is really nice. Dare I say maybe a little prune character, which makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
These are some well-aged plums we have going on here. It's got like every part of the plum biting experience. Like even like the plum in the skin, I'm bringing it up to my nose. That is what the beer smells like. And then as I taste it, like I am biting into it. The sweetness, the acidity hits me, and then it finishes perfectly. We're selling liquid plums in a bottle, folks.
Yeah.
And at 4.9%, like eat a couple plums, you'll be fine.
Yes. I know. There's not much to say besides it's like a really pretty beer. You get a touch of that purple in the head. It's got excellent head retention for a sour beer.
It really does.
Some of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah. Could that be a pectin thing too? I'm talking like beyond my actual understanding of how beer works, but could that be a factor?
You're also talking beyond my understanding of pectins.
Very good.
I would assume off the top of my head, because it's not super acidic, that protein hasn't all been kind of destroyed.
Right.
So some of that leftover unmalted wheat character could be, and like the other proteins that are still in there haven't been completely consumed by the acid.
Right.
Is my gut.
Yeah.
But I would have to do more research into that, to be honest.
Me too. And I'm definitely going to be chasing some stuff down about this beer because I just enjoy it so much. And I'm going to argue like this has pretty mellow acidity. Like this is, once again, this is taking me right back to like how a plum actually works. Yeah. I'm getting like plum level acidity and much less like, big bright lactobacillus character out of this.
Yeah. Slightly overripe plum.
Yeah.
So like just when it's past being like firm and you're just starting to get a little bit of give to it, I think is best characterized for where this is.
Yeah, I cannot say enough nice things about this beer. This is like, to me, one of the most authentic, high fidelity reproductions of a fruit I've had in a beer ever. This doesn't even strike me as like beer with fruit added. This is just fruit that has been beerified in some manner.
For sure. Yeah. I would drink this, enjoy it, savor it. And if you were feeling particularly adventurous, maybe drink it along with a nice vanilla bean ice cream.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is a great note. I'm going to cellar a couple of these in my closet cellar and kind of see what this turns into. What would your guess be? Like, what would a bottle like this be in a year? A little thinner? A little tartar? A little less tart? I really don't know. Like, I've never had such a great representation of a fruit before. I'm so thrilled with this one.
My gut wants to say a little bit harder, but I do think some of that like sherry will probably develop a little bit more of those dark, non-acidic notes. I think will come around a little bit, maybe like a little tobacco or leather.
Yeah, from the oxidation. God, that sounds really welcome. Like a little leather note, like coming along with a slightly diminished plum note. I can't wait to drink this beer like fresh off draft. I cannot wait to drink bottles of it at my house. And then summer of 2023, I can't wait to find out what this beer's turned into.
Yeah, this will always be fun to drink in slightly warm weather. I actually, I think you can drink this in the snow.
Oh, definitely.
Drink it in the summer. It's really all around. It's pleasing.
Yeah, Daniel Paddock done did it again. And huge shout out to the Kitchen Queens of the Miracle Plum Neighborhood Market for plumbing us up. Cheers.
Cheers.
HenHouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at HenHouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of HenHouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcasts@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.